Welcome back to TMI with Teryl and Martha. This is a bonus episode because so much has been happening with RFK and HHS and all the alphabet soups out there related to your health, Teryl. So we wanted to talk about some of these things today. And the two big things were about 2 weeks ago, Marty Makary, who is the physician from Johns Hopkins University that is now the head of the FDA, put out a statement saying, you know what, we have been giving women a lot of mixed messages about HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and we are going to convene this panel of people that know what they're talking about related to hormone replacement therapy, and we're going to try to dispel some of the mistakes that have happened. And they did that on the 17th of July, and then afterwards you could watch it. They archived it, and then they put out some information afterwards about it. And you know, for me, I went into menopause 17 years ago. Okay, and so at the time, it was that mixed message time where maybe you have hormone replacement therapy. Oh, it might cause cancer. Oh, it might cause heart disease, do this and that. So I basically, and I hope this isn't TMI, but I basically said, I got all my parts. And so I'm just not going to do anything until people are a little more sure about what the thing is. And now it's been 17 years.
And that was probably a great move.
I feel great. I feel fine. I haven't really done any of the HRT, but I did call up my GYN after this came out and said, hey, have you seen this? Have you looked at it? What do you think about it? I know I haven't really done anything. I did some compound hormones for a while with Dr. Lisa
Did you? Good.
And I'm actually going to start seeing her again because I have some concerns about
We need
this.
to have her on the show.
Yes. And I said, should I be concerned about any of this? And the nurse goes, well, we do have an expert. That's the answer, that all big medical practices give you now. No offense, but, we've got someone that just specializes in that.
We know they're canned. Okay.
Yes,
we do.
Yes.
We're on to you.
But I thought it really addressed an issue that women are having because we're all going to get there, we hope.
Yes.
And we want to make sure we're doing the right thing. We don't want to put something into our body that turns out to be a mistake later.
And that happens so often. Whether you're anything that's new that gets started, we kind of are the guinea pigs, right? And so that's a chance that we're taking anytime. But Lord, the women and the nightmares that they go through, some of them, not everybody, like we discussed with Dr. Mickey, some people sail right through the transition in menopause. Others don't. Or you could be like me, who overrides her own bodily functions and says, I'm great no matter what.
Well, and I think, too, one of the things that you have to be careful of is bone density. And you should, if you haven't gotten a bone density screening, you should. And I had mine in the last year, and I have bone density of a 35-year-old. So that made me feel good.
That is
with
great.
that. But I'm glad that the FDA is revisiting things.
That is a miracle.
You shouldn't just say, okay, this is the way it is, and then we never look at it
leave it
again.
alone. Yeah.
That's right. And there's another area they're looking at, which we should, as time goes on, we'll talk more about, is chemotherapy.
Wow.
And because chemotherapy has been the, quote, gold standard in cancer treatment. But there's also some great new drugs out there that aren't as harsh on you as chemotherapy, but there's a lot of money involved in chemotherapy.
So much money. Yeah.
So as those kinds of things happen, we're gonna talk about those as the information becomes available, because we're all gonna deal with that too as time goes on.
Yeah, and I feel, Martha, that the fact that there's been movement in the FDA relative to some of these things is really the godsend that we need, because I mean, the education that a lot of people received in med school, even per Dr. Mickey, was there was not a lot of menopausal education going on. So women have really suffered after they've gone through menopause with fatigue and brain fog and weight gain. And, oftentimes, unless there's something really medically wrong with them, they're just told to live with it. Or you take an antidepressant or something.
And I think they've used it as an excuse for almost any problem a woman might have. Oh, well, you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, so this must be because of menopause. And maybe it's not.
Right.
So I think what's good about what HHS is doing is that they are getting a little deeper than
They're
the
looking
food
deeper.
issues. And they're also taking a look at vaccine schedules and all that kind of thing too. And that does not mean they're anti-vax folks.
No.
What they are saying is now infant children have like 50 vaccines they get when they're born.
Yeah.
And do you really need all of those? We're also going to get into
We're
those.
asking questions.
We're
and
asking.
That is important because it's real easy if people are just blindly just doing to slip things in for the sake of money making. What harm
Yes.
can it do? Well, actually a lot, but you don't necessarily hear that conversation.
No, because I think that unfortunately vaccines took a big hit through COVID. The
Yes.
word used to be
Yes.
a very positive word that meant nothing but good things, right? And so we're going to have a lot more. We're going to talk about that too. But the other huge thing that happened was that without any prompting from the federal government, the MAHA movement, which is Make America Healthy Again, and the MAHA movement was all about really food more than anything else. Don't you think? I think movement
the food
was a part of it.
colorings,
Yes.
The FDA regulations around the food coloring, around the foods that are sold in packaged foods, etc. I think that has been people's main focus is that. And some vaccines.
The largest organization that's over food manufacturers came out last week and said they were going to remove all of the synthetic dyes from their products driven by consumer demand. We said we don't want them anymore.
Right.
Okay. And natural alternatives. And the key point here is, and the companies that are included are General Mills, Nestle, Kraft, Heinz, ConAgra, huge.
That's amazing.
All of these, they're going to phase them out by the end of 26 or 27. And I think what's important about this is they've already done this in Europe.
Yeah,
They've already done
it's
this.
not new.
They've got the recipes, if you
Right.
will,
Yep.
to be able to do this, but they were pushing against it for years and years and years.
Right. Well, it's going to cost them a little more, probably. Maybe not. I don't really know those details, but like I said, change is hard, especially big business. You got systems built around it. You got manufacturing sites built up around it.
Right,
Something that seems small to us is a huge change for a manufacturer. So at some level, I get it. But when you knowingly are putting out and producing foods that are harming people, you ultimately do have a responsibility to your own consumers to make a change there so that those people can continue buying your foods. Because now we have a voice now. This digital age that we're in has allowed people to do their own research, to find their own information. And hopefully you can tell them where to go to find some of this FDA information so that they can learn a little bit more about what our government's doing relative to some of these things.
Well, it's really simple. You go to FDA.org. And there is just FDA.gov.
Okay.
There is a plethora of just lots of information you can dig into and find out more. And what I think is so interesting of some of these things, here's some examples of some changes that are made. General Mills is removing artificial dyes from all of its U.S. cereals and food served in the K-12 schools by the summer of 2026. So that's
amazing.
less than a year away. Yep. Kraft Heinz has announced a similar plan to remove dyes from their U.S. products extending into 2027. Nestle, Nestles,
right.
Nestle is the very best. Okay, will eliminate artificial colors from its food and beverage. We think of them for chocolate, right? But they're going to remove that. Smuckers. You always thought Smuckers was basic,
it's just
right?
Jelly.
It was jelly and sugar, and they were known for being, basic.
Right.
And just the fruit and sugar and whatever.
Right.
Well, no, they had some food coloring in there, and they're going to get rid of that too.
Wow.
So I'm pretty excited. It will be a little different snacking experience.
Well,
my niece, I've mentioned before, she had a baby just on July 4th, actually, born on the 4th of July. And I went to her baby shower a few weeks before that. And I had this list of crackers I was allowed to bring. It was funny because I agreed to bring the crackers and the chips, but then I got the list of the crackers and chips I was allowed to bring. They were very expensive. It's the most expensive chips and crackers I've ever bought.
You're going to pay for it these days.
They were healthy.
Yes.
They were healthy.
Yeah, you're going to pay a little extra for health. And while you were saying that, you're going to have a different snacking experience. I was sitting here thinking to myself, which I'm sure everybody was thinking, boy, things are going to look different too.
Yes.
So, I mean, as consumers, you guys, we're all asking for them to get this toxic stuff out of our foods, but you're going to need to be willing to be okay with what it looks like when they're not using those food dyes and those food colorings. We've gotten very used to things looking a certain way, but this is going to kind of change the way not things just taste, but how they look as well.
Well, and I'm going to challenge these food manufacturers in America, because you mentioned it might cost a little more for the changeover, and it might. But if you go to the UK or France or any of the countries I've been in the last few years, the food is cheaper.
Right.
It is healthier.
Yeah.
And for example, I know everybody doesn't partake in wine, but in France, you can buy a really good bottle of wine in France for €3, which is about $4, $5, and no headache,
no nitrates,
not very much sugar.
No,
it was like the best experience I've had drinking wine ever, and I'm talking about an experience,
right?
Not necessarily having a couple of glasses of wine.
I love wine. I love red wine. And I will say I have a friend who has preached European wines and more specifically Italian wines, but mostly European wines. And she used to joke that she was a wine snob, which she kind of really is. And if you're listening, you know who you are. But I do love the fact that I was able to legitimize her thoughts, because I did come across some information that basically said, although I love Napa, I go there regularly with friends and I get some good wines from them. But in European countries, they do not use the same pesticides. They use different processing methods, and they do not have the nitrates and the different components that do lead to the headaches and the aftertaste sometimes that you get with wines here in the United States.
One of the things that's happened with these trade deals is that we are going to start importing more chickens to Europe and France, because they don't like the way we clean our chickens. Okay, they don't like that we use bleach or something like that to clean them up with, and so we've come to a compromise on that. But the point is, everybody was, not everybody, there were a lot of people that were saying, oh, RFK is this crazy guy and he's going to do nothing but crazy things.
Right.
But I got to tell you, six months down the road, though, he looks like he has made reasonable decisions that the average mother and father would want to make for their own children if they could. But these food manufacturers took that power away from these moms and dads.
Yes.
And said, this is what you have to buy.
Yeah. And, crazy is as crazy does. Because, I've been screaming about this for a long time. And, what's funny is, most people do not read the labels of food, right? So it's very obvious that, along with this, there's a lot of things that are in our foods that are insidious. We've talked a little bit about the sugar. What do you call it? The corn sugar. It's the corn syrup.
That's what it is, corn syrup.
Corn syrup. And also seed oils, right? And you wouldn't think that seed oils would be in peanut butter. But I was reading labels at the grocery store the other day. Usually I'm flying through there, cart in hand, just tick, 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 tick. But I have discovered that if I take the time to read, I'm finding out that the foods that we've been eating that I thought were good still have the, corn syrup in them and still have seed oil. So my advice is to applaud this situation, but also take the time to read the labels when you can, because just even a balsamic vinaigrette, if you read the label, you're going to find sometimes that seed oil is a second ingredient.
And it's so interesting, because I know that RFK has talked about the seed oils. I still don't quite understand that one. I need to dig into it a little more.
I know a lot more about that.
Good. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it seems like there are opportunities, to really do healthy things.
Right.
And what oils are better to cook with, and
we
all
could
of
have
that
a
kind of
whole
stuff.
podcast almost on that.
Yes.
Because those things do make a difference. Like what happens to the oil once it's heated. Which oils are more stable at higher heats? Which oils are not? I never thought about any of that. Canola oils, coconut oils. There's so many things out there. But there are really, really sound studies coming out that discuss the seed oils in foods and what the seed oils do once they get into your body. So we'll start seeing information. I guarantee you we'll see more on that as we go along. But the the progress is amazing. I'm super excited about it.
So I'm very encouraged with what I'm seeing at HHS.
Mhm.
I have a friend of mine, Grant Thomas, who has gone to work for the CMS side, the
Mhm.
Medicare side. And we
Right.
may talk about that at some point in time, since a lot of the people who are going to be watching this podcast are of Medicare age.
Right.
And they look at their health that if Medicare doesn't pay for it, I'm not going to do it. And then they need to approach it differently.
Right.
Okay. Because
Yes.
there are going to be things that aren't covered by Medicare that you need to do and you should
Right.
do. But Dr. Oz, is heading up Medicare.
Right.
And so, I'm working on getting him for my radio program on WDUN, and hopefully we'll be able to do that. But I think that it's so good that we've got a doctor now that's heading up CMS
Yeah.
and somebody that's a thoracic surgeon, so understands, even though people think of Dr. Oz from the
TV show.
program, the TV
Mhm.
show, he still was a thoracic surgeon, which is
Right.
like the top of the top of the
Right.
top of medical specialties as
Right.
far
He
as
gets trained in all
he's
areas.
very well
Right.
trained. And so it'll be interesting to see that. And I got to tell you, I give RFK Jr. a B+ here 6 months down the road. I never give anybody a 100
No.
or an A+, but I give him a B+ 6 months down the road because I think he's doing what he said he was going to do.
I'm so happy about that. And if he
Yep.
gets the pharmaceutical ads off my TV, the
Yes.
very few times I watch those, if you can do that, RFK, I hope you're watching. Yeah, I'll give you an A+ if you can get those off my TV.
So we were so happy to bring you this very special
Yes,
bonus
just-
episode today. And as we get information related to things you think are important, like hormone replacement therapy or food additives, we're going to bring those to you. But what do you think about RFK Jr.? What grade would you give him? Like and subscribe on YouTube and go into the comments. Tell us what you think about it, because we want to cover all the points of
We
view
do.
that you're interested in.
Yes. And please share with your friends, get people talking about this, because that's how we use one voice to make major change. One voice is all of our voices together. When we start directing where the money goes with what we're buying, what we're saying, it does make change. So never feel like one person can make a difference, because when we all join hands together, we can change the course of how things are going so that our children and grandchildren can live very healthy lives, and we can leave a place that we're proud of for them in the long run.
So thank you for being with us today, and we look for you next week, because
Your wellness deserves a little oversharing. Tell your friends.